Today, I'm joined by Dr. Praveen Kottath Veetil, Associate Dean of Student Affairs at Avalon University School of Medicine in Curacao. Dr. Praveen brings an extensive experience in medical education across multiple countries, including Canada, China, Yemen, and now the Caribbean. With specialized fellowships in medical education from both the UK and the US, he has been instrumental in transforming Avalon's curriculum from a discipline-based approach to an integrated spiral curriculum that better prepares students for clinical practice. Dr. Praveen's journey to leadership is particularly impressive. Starting as a faculty member, he distinguished himself through his work on the curriculum committee before eventually becoming its chair. His exceptional ability to connect with students and his genuine concern when they struggle made him the natural choice for his current role as Associate Dean of Student Affairs. Welcome to the podcast, Dr. Praveen.
Thank you, Dr. Palmerton. Thank you for the nice introduction of me. Yeah, and yes, let's start with the podcast and let's try to see what are the things that we can do here to help the students, not only at Avalon, maybe as a whole.
Excellent. So let's start with, how did you end up as the Associate Dean of Student Affairs at Avalon?
So like normally whenever we have like some positions like that, like the Avalon University likes to advertise it internally because within the faculty first, and if not suitable candidates available, then they advertise outside. So for the Associate Dean of Student Affairs, they advertise internally, and then we have the application process. There is a selection committee. They look into our CVs and our letter of intent and things like that. They do the interview, and after the interview, they select us. So primarily for the Associate Dean of Student Affairs, the main thing was the ability for a faculty to look into the coordinating ability within the students. So under the Associate Dean of Student Affairs, we have Student Governing Association, the SGA falls, and then other like supporting activities for the students, including the campus director who facilitates the various facilities within the campus and the dorms and living facilities. And then we have psychology counselor, we have health services like campus nurse, and then we have mentorship programs like student mentorship programs, peer tutoring programs, faculty mentorship programs, etc. So these kind of mentorship programs and these kind of support services falls under the Associate Dean of Student Affairs. So, and also sometimes the students need accommodation, students need special needs, and they also approach the office of the Associate Dean of Student Affairs. So we look into their credential, why they are requesting, what kind of accommodations we could provide, maybe for, say, just for example, learning disabilities, and they want like extra time for an exam. So we look into all those documents and then make a final decision within our office, and then only the information that is very essential to be distributed to the other faculty. Say for example, this student need this specific thing, and without disclosing much of the problem or like a health concerns, we have to tell the faculties or the concerned department to provide these kind of accommodation to the specific student. So those are all the the job profile that we have for Associate Dean of Student Affairs.
Interesting. When I was a medical student, I didn't really understand the difference between like academic affairs and student affairs, but that was a very, very helpful explanation of, essentially my understanding is that you're like, both academic affairs and student affairs are focused on the students. It's
Yes.
just that academic affairs are more from the school's perspective, like classes and things like
the
that.
grades and how they are performing in the exams, and like more like, so we have like the Dean of Basic Sciences, the Dean of Clinical Sciences, and our Chief Academic Officer, Dr. Satish Arja. So we have all these different positions, but my role, yes, as is specifically to look into the student affairs, which include their, say for example, students have attendance issues, so they are unable to attend the classes or something like that, maybe health reasons or like financial reasons. So to make an appointment with those students and then see what they are struggling with and what the school can offer for them, and maybe they need a leave of absence, they can apply to me. Okay, these are the reasons for the leave of absence, and then I permit them to take a leave of absence. But I discuss normally with them what are the pros and cons of taking a leave of absence, and then what happens when they come back after leave of absence, how much things might have already gone out of the brain, and how they can keep up with the things for the memory purpose during this leave of absence, and how they can reduce that, the impact they get during the leave of absence, and those kind of discussions I do a lot with the student.
I feel like that must give you a very unique perspective, because in addition to being the chair of the curriculum committee, you also are a physiology professor. So you're teaching students in the classes. You're also in charge of basically the entire preclinical, if my understanding, like preclinical
No, both
sort of
for
curriculum.
the student services, it's entire. Previously, I was like the curriculum committee chair. Now just a member because too much of workload as student affairs. So previously I was the curriculum committee chair, and now I'm just a member in the curriculum committee. And currently I am doing the associate dean of student affairs, and as well as I chair the human structure and function department, and I teach the physiology aspects of various systems that we cover, various topics that we cover.
And so you mentioned transitioning to an integrated spiral curriculum.
Yes.
What prompted this change?
So yeah, so we have in addition to the curriculum committee, we have a quality assurance committee. We have so they are mainly responsible to integrate with the medical education unit and to collect all the evaluation reports, and then the outcome reports, how many students are passing, what is happening with our student, the results, and then the feedback that we get from multiple stakeholders, and then see what we can do. So it was one of the suggestions from the quality assurance committee that okay, our curriculum needs a revamp, or needs some changes. So as a curriculum committee chair at that time, what I got was this feedback. Okay, so the quality assurance committee is looking for, and then in association with the deans, like Dean of Basic Science, Chief Academic Officer, and Dean of Clinical Sciences, we sat together and see what are the possibilities. So we come up with this idea of the spiral curriculum, where in the basic sciences we do 2 levels of system-wise learning, and then we add in others like PBL, problem-based learning into it, and the case-based learning into it, flipped classrooms into it. That means a lot of active learning principles, standardized patient-based examination, or standardized patient-based studying at the basic science level. And then how can a student transition from basic science to the clinical science? We added the MD5, and then immediately after passing the step 1, is it a good idea to send them directly to the clinical rotations, or they need we introduce a 6 weeks of introduction to clinical medicine before they actually go. It's a 6 weeks introduction, so they go to all the departments and get used with the hospital settings and things like that, and then they start their core rotations. At the end of the core rotations, they have to take the NVM. Each core rotation have NVMe shelf exam, then NVMe clinical, the combined examinations of the clinical knowledge, and then they have to take the step 2, and then they have to finish their elective rotations, and then they have to go for the OSCE exam, and then get the degree. They get the permission to apply for the residency, and then we'll have during that time the mock interviews and things like that to train them for the matching process. And then we take the students right from the beginning, from the day 1 orientation, and we have multiple orientations in each section. Okay, the day 1 orientation is different from when they reach to MD5 orientation, when they go to introduction to clinical medicine orientation, when they start rotations, core rotations, the orientation is different. When they finish and then they pass the step 2 exam, then again they have the different orientation, and then when they are getting prepared for the match process, they have other orientations for that purposes. So these are taking care of the student, not only at the academic perspective, but as a human as a whole, their emotional journey, their financial. We have to look into all other aspects of the student. The student success depends on when all of them is perfectly letting them to do their academics. So how far we can support on that aspect is the main concern at this level. As Associate Dean of Student Affairs, we do. And for the curriculum, that is one of the concerns. We need to improve the match, and we want to improve the residency. And we got the input from various stakeholders. Then we decided to do this curriculum. And then by we did the curriculum, it's also important everyone appreciate a new curriculum. It's so hard to implement a new curriculum because everyone have concerns and say, so even during the process we make sure that all the stakeholders are involved in the process of change process, the decision making, and as well as what are the components everyone looking into in the new curriculum. So we had like multiple meetings with the faculties, with the students, with the management, because it involves the finances, like extra finances required for a new curriculum to be like rolled in, everything, every stakeholders were discussed with, and then everyone's input was taken into consideration. After preparing, again before implementation, again we sat with each of these stakeholders and described to them what is the change process going to be looking like. And it was not like it suddenly, okay, this day it immediately changed. No, it was a slow rolling over. Okay, so anyone who was in the previous curriculum was like continuing, and the new curriculum was introduced like slowly one by one, and so the transition process was smooth. So yeah, as a curriculum chair at that time, yeah, that was a big challenge, and also to get the feedback regularly, what is happening, and then making small changes here and there. For example, to give you an example, like there was like a feedback from the alumni community, like graduate alumni, and then when they, after even the match, okay, they were giving us the feedback. So during even the interview process or during the step 2, they have been seeing at that time like a lot of radiological based questions and radiological imaging, and by the time they reached to the step 2 level, it became so hard for them to understand the basics of this. So what we did was to try to increase the amount of time that the anatomy teachers spent on like cadaveric images and the image. We want equally more importance or more time being spent in the curriculum for radiological anatomy. So this kind of like a small changes we keep continuously making into the curriculum now, and getting the feedback is the key, and evaluating them and trying to understand what changes we required is the key on that.
Makes sense. So it sounds like you're beginning with the end in mind. You're saying, okay, so there's it sounds like a lot of coordination and work. You're saying like, okay, so for example, there's a lot more radiology questions that we're seeing on, say, step 2 or shelf exams or things like
Yes.
that. So now, what is it going to take? Like, let's take a step back. What is it going to take for us to design into our curriculum more anatomy understanding, more understanding of imaging techniques, more understanding of specifically these kinds of imaging of whatever
Yes,
it is that
that's
they're going
true.
to see, so that, and then reassess it later. Is that right?
Yes, perfectly.
I'm curious. So it sounds like you guys you said NBME exams after each clinical rotation. Those are shelf exams, I assume?
Self exams, and also each basic science courses also. We have NBMA exams at the end of each MBA basic science courses. Clinical rotation, like say they finish surgery rotation, they have to take and the self exam of the surgery. Same like that, when they finish like courses like human structure and function course, they have to take like NBME subject exams of physiology, anatomy, histology, embryology. All of them they have to take. When they finish biochemistry, genetic, they have to take NBME exam of that. And when they finish all the basic science courses, they have to take the NBME of the comprehensive basic science examination. Then they will be certified for the step 1 exam. Then after passing step 1, they go for the clinical rotation, and before entering, they have that introduction to clinical medicine. Then at the end of introduction to clinical medicine, there is no exams or something. It's just introduction. Then they start the core rotation. At the end of each core rotation, they have again NBME shelf exam. And at the end of all the core rotation, then they have NBME combined clinical skills examinations, clinical knowledge examination. And then they will be certified for the step 2 exam. Then they have to take the OSCE exam.
A lot of NBME written examinations. I'm curious to know. So I think one nice thing about using sort of NBME style exams or external questions is that it gives you an objective measure of how sort of the student is doing, as well as like how it is that we're doing as educators.
Perfect.
What
Also, to add to
differences?
that, see, the purpose of putting this NBME is like to completely avoid, like maximally avoid the bias. See, what happens if you have only internal exam, of course, like we do a lot of internal exams. There is weekly quizzes and mid-semester exams, final exam. There are a lot of exams that we do, but those are all like internal exam. So we need like in the grading formula, certain percentage to come from the internal exam and certain percentage to come from the external exam. Then only the students get like, like unbiasedly examined. And then it gives like a confidence to the student itself. Oh, I'm not only getting examined by my teachers alone over here, I'm being examined by like internationally or like, that feeling, and they get like a motivation to, okay, I am successful in NBME. Okay. It gives confidence to them. That's the
I'm
purpose.
curious, did you notice a difference in scores between like the old curriculum and then the new spiral curriculum?
Definitely, we have been seeing that, and then introduction of this NBME, we have been seeing the success rates much higher. And not only that, like another aspect of it is that like the students are getting suddenly exposed to a NBME, say after like 4 semesters, after MD4 or something like that. You suddenly expose they get that anxiety too much, and this step by step giving them exams reduces their anxiety level. Their preparation is much targeted in that, reducing the anxiety and reducing the sudden exposure is avoided.
Now, you mentioned off camera that you said that something like almost all step one failures are an emotional, like an EQ problem more than an IQ problem.
Most see admission criteria, IQ is primarily important. Like we look into the IQ, we look into the GPA, we look into the MCAT score, and then we come. And even if we found out even before the admission, okay, this student's MCAT score is slightly low, we have a different program for those students. Like we have like an extended program, we call that the regular program, and the other one is the accelerated program where the MCAT score is higher and like good to go kind of students. So majorly the problem comes with the other group. Even if there is an emotional problem with the group with the high scores, they can somehow cover up with their ability to perform well in the exam. They may be anxious, but because of their skill, maybe do it faster or do it like quickly, or their memorization quickness or something, they may be able to cover it up. But when it comes to the struggling students, they will be struggling not only in one aspects, maybe in multiple aspects. That's why they cannot balance it between them and they struggle a lot. So that's where the aspect of which he's struggling more is the emotional aspect. The means anxiety and things like that. How to use the intelligence, etc.
Let's talk about that more. So, like, what would you say are maybe the top 2 or 3 like biggest reasons why you see? Because you have a very sort of broad perspective on students, both as dean of student affairs and
As a
former
faculty.
head of the curriculum chair, and just mentoring students and just teaching
Yes.
them.
Yes.
What would you say are the top maybe 2 or 3 biggest emotional challenges that are causing students? Because there's a lot of students failing step one now. So ever since step one went pass fail, I know for the USMDs, it's something like 3 or 4 times the number of students are failing now than there was even just like 4 or 5 years ago. So what would you, in your perspective, what are the top maybe 2 or 3 things that are emotional challenges that are causing students to fail?
So we are here like, let's categorize the student into 2 of them. Okay, there are like problems with that. Say 80% of the students who are actually passing, they also have this kind of problem, and also the 20% of the students who are not passing and have the same problems. So say for example, anxiety. It's not that the 80% of the students who pass the exam is not having the anxiety, but they know how to use their anxiety very positively to answer the questions. Or say in anxiety they have a high cortisol level, and how that high cortisol can be used to get a lot of brain glucose and use them for answering the questions. They know it very clearly. But the other 20% who failed also have anxiety, but they don't know how to use this anxiety. They change that anxiety into panic attack. They change it into like a weakness for them, and then they struggle to use their intelligence or use their memory. So primarily that is one problem, right? The anxiety. The second is having the enough information, enough knowledge, or enough memory when they go to the exam itself. So again, the first 80% does not mean that who passes step one does not mean that they have all the 100% knowledge. No, absolutely no. Okay, so whatever the knowledge they have it and they used it. say to pass the exam, you need like 80% of the knowledge. They might have only that 80% of the knowledge. They are also not having that 100% of the knowledge. So whatever knowledge they have used it, they have passed the exam. But the other group also, it does not mean that they have extra knowledge or something. No. Similar to the 80% of the student who is passing, the 20% of the students who is failing also have the knowledge part. But the problem is, whatever knowledge they have, they are not able to use it at the time of the exam. You got that?
So it sounds like there's anxiety. It sounds like it's sort of like I'm seeing like a bell curve, right?
Yes.
There's like ADHD.
Yeah.
It's not that people with ADHD or the people that are neurotypical that don't have ADHD. It's not like they don't have inattention.
Yes.
It's not that they don't have problems of emotion regulation or things like that. It's just that people that have ADHD have more problems. They're sort of like the
That's true.
2 standard deviations from the mean kinds of problems. So it sounds like what you're seeing is that people that have higher degrees of anxiety, people that have a bigger problem of I think what we call transfer, right? Transfer is like, I know the material, but can I transfer it or can I use it in a novel context, which is
Yes.
essentially what the USMLEs are testing. Those students are the ones that are struggling the most. Is that what I'm
Yes.
understanding?
Perfect. That's what I'm
What have
trying
you
to say.
found makes the biggest difference for those students? Like what have you, how, because what we found is that if you can help the student, when you can help the students that are struggling the most to succeed, typically those sorts of techniques are applicable to everyone, right? Like if you take the most successful students and you say, what did you do in the last 2 months? Everyone says like, oh, I just did a lot of questions and whatever. But like, you're not really seeing you're not really seeing what they're really doing, how they're really using the materials. You're just kind of seeing the surface stuff. Whereas if you can take someone who's struggling and make them successful, those things tend to be more universal. So I'm curious to know, in your perspective, what are the things that have helped the most for the students that struggle?
Good. So the point over here, all 100% of the students, when they actually come in the beginning, the first semester, everyone have like concerns, issues. So we try to give them the advice. Someone picks up quickly those things, okay, change their methods, apply it. Someone else, second time, maybe pick it up, then start applying, and then start rolling into the. So anyone who drops out is someone who cannot pick up so getting that feedback, getting into their brain, using that feedback is also an inherent property the student should have. So we are like, okay, previously our main concern was to give them the feedback. Okay. Now our focus is mainly from an academic advising or like a student mentorship or like a faculty mentoring the students, and during the faculty training programs, what we are now trying to see is that how to make sure the students accept the feedback, how to make them open for receiving the feedback, how we can increase the psychological safety of the student so they feel very psychologically safe in the classroom or come to a mentor to take that way. And whenever they are having a high psychological safety feeling, they receive the feedback very positively. That's what the study shows and what we are trying to do. So in order for the student to receive our feedback, whoever received the feedback, okay, they are going good. Whoever struggles are someone who is unable to receive the feedback. Feedback comes from our studying techniques or everything. We are giving it in the orientation. All the resources teach everyone what are the learning techniques, how to learn, how to memorize, everything is there. But are they incorporating into their life? Are they adapting it to themselves? Are they able to self-regulate and understand, self-evaluate themselves and understand what am I going wrong? Are they able to incorporate the feedback provided by the faculty mentor? In order to do that, what we identified, the student should always remain in a highly psychologically safe environment. They should feel, okay, this is they should not feel like they are being judged. They should not feel that they are being targeted or something like that. They should feel they are in a very highly psychologically safe environment. So most of our recent faculty development activities are concentrated on that, how to make sure the students stay in a psychologically safe environment to receive the feedback. Previously, we used to have a lot of faculty development activities where how to give feedback, how to make sure that the student understand what are their weaknesses and strengths and how to give them those. Now, not only that, we need to also know how to make sure that they are in a position to receive those feedback.
That makes sense. I mean, they say that the survival instinct is so innate that we respond to psychological threats in the same way that we would to physical threat, right? If someone comes at us and triggers our feelings of inadequacy or something like that, and we feel like we're not good enough, then we're going to sort of run away from that figuratively in the same way that we would run away from a lion that was charging at us. And so it sounds
Perfect.
like
Yes.
what you're doing is you're makes a lot of sense, right? It's not just how you're telling them, it's not just how you're coaching them, it's how you're making them feel while you're coaching them.
Perfect. So it's not only in the classroom, in the campus, as well as when a student walks into his faculty office to receive the feedback. All these timings, it's about the learning environment that we want to create. It's the environment that feels them safe. They should feel like everywhere safe. Okay. And anyone who can understand, okay, they are in a safer environment, performs okay. Because they have the IQ. The IQ is never has been a problem. They have the IQ. They only have to get the feeling that, okay, I am in a very safe environment. I am confident enough. I am going to, make it. If they have that confidence, we don't even need to advise those students, give any feedback to those students of almost like 60% of the students, nothing to be done. They're already in a safe environment. They already have that mindset. And the remaining students who really need the feedback, they are not having the feeling of a safe, unless otherwise they feel the safe environment, they don't receive any feedback.
Now, how do you make them feel safe? Like, what are you doing that, so let's say that I'm talking to a student and I want to make them feel really safe. I can see very clearly what their problem is.
Yes.
But I am struggling to get through to them because, every time I say something, I'm triggering them. What are you doing in that situation to make them feel safe? Like, what's maybe like one or two things that are concrete things that I could take?
Very good. So that's a very good question. That's what we found. Majority of the students who transfer to our school really appreciate that approach from us. That we are providing them all the multiple avenues, including psychology. So whenever a faculty mentor feels, or a faculty feels this student is studying in the class, or when we are asking a question to the student, or when they are coming to they are not opening up, or they are not saying, okay, we are trying to ask the student what is the problem. So what is the first advice we do? We have specific counselors, educational counselors, academic counselors, psychology counselors, health counselors, etc. So what the problem is trying to understand, and then accordingly approaching the right person. Maybe all the faculty over here does not have that skill set enough to provide a psychological or educational psychologist kind of approach. So we have the medical science, medical education unit where educational advices can be provided. We have psychology counselor where adjustment can be provided. We have health counselors like campus nurse and things like that. They can provide the health related problems they are facing. Say, for example, a student is coming because the student is tending to miss a lot of classes. The student feels this is health reason. Student feels when the student is waking up in the morning, the student is getting headache. And especially they tend to miss, for example, a subject that is very difficult for them is the first class in the morning. Definitely they are missing it. So they have to understand that, okay, this health reason they are getting it is not because of actual health reason, because they are not feeling it safe to go there, because they, for example, a student hate anatomy, say, and the morning class is anatomy. That student will definitely have a headache in the morning. They don't want to, go, and even if they go into the anatomy class somehow, reach because of the attendance, and then it's mandatory to go or something like that. Okay, labs are mandatory and the students have to go to for the sessions mandatory. They are there, but their focus or attention is not at all there in that activity, that is active sessions going on in the class, or they are not pre-reading well because they feel they had an headache, they could not concentrate well, they are sick. Because of that, actually that sickness came out of the fear of that subject, or fear to go to the class, fear to, that's actually happening to the student. So how to address this? So faculty may not be sufficient. So what we do is guide that student. Okay, you go and talk to this counselor. Okay, so educational counselor or like a psychology counselor or health counselor to see, okay, is it really health related? Okay, is it really like a health related problem or not? If not, okay, psychology, is it like it's something happening back home and then going to affect you, something like that, or something like social factors affecting you or not, or educational reason, okay, because I am not able to score, I am not able to understand these concepts, am I struggling in that, am I getting these kind of like, problems because of that? So we have like counselors for that they can identify them and help them. Again, after all this, it does not mean that 100% results is possible. Still, there are students who is not able to, you know, accept that. That's where they struggle and attrition happens. Students have to or take a leave of absence and understand themselves and then come back. We have stories where the students come back and like became successful. And more importantly, they should know how to self-regulate themselves, how to self-evaluate themselves, how to apply to them, and we teach those during orientations also.
So it sounds like a lot of it is just, it starts with awareness, right? The foundation is awareness of helping them understand, like, I know that it feels like you've got this sort of whatever the symptom is, or like, oh, it's like every time you think of anatomy, like you don't want to go. But helping them to realize that it sounds like it's become a vicious cycle, right?
Yeah.
It's like maybe something in the beginning made them not want to do anatomy or go to the class, maybe because it was early and they missed a couple classes, and then now they're like feel behind, and so every time they think about it, it's like they're already feeling pretty stressed, they're already feeling pretty overwhelmed. You've got the fire hose of information, and now this is like a particularly stressful one.
Yes.
And so now that sort of added stress makes them feel even worse about going to that particular class, so they don't go to that one. So it becomes, so then they don't go to class, they're not able to keep up with the work even more. Now they're even further behind, feel more overwhelmed, and so it becomes like a vicious cycle.
Also, to add to that, like we have like certain programs that we have like both like we can have accelerated and like regular ones. So we can advise, say a student is struggling in the accelerated program, we can advise them to drop the courses or something like that, or move to the different program where they can take time to adapt to this and then become successful. So that adaptation in the beginning is important again.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, we had a student once. He'd failed step one, and he couldn't get out of bed. It was so bad. Like it was like he felt so bad because he wanted to go into urology. So he was like he wanted to go into something really really competitive,
Okay.
and he'd actually failed step one. So he felt awful. Just couldn't get out of bed, and yeah, I mean, it was like this process of having to rebuild his confidence in himself, make him feel safe studying again, because just the act of opening up his UWorld QBank was enough to trigger him. And so, to build up his confidence. But ultimately, what we found was that when you show people that they can be successful, when you show people, like in his case, we were like, okay, let's start with something small. Let's make sure that you can show yourself that you can get at least 80% on what it is that you study. And then we kept expanding that. So it's like not just one subject, but now an entire system, not just one system, but multiple systems. In 2 months, he eventually scored a 262, which would be like top 3%.
Yeah.
So he went from the bottom 3% to the top 3%, really all because of that principle, right? Psychological safety.
Safety,
Right?
yeah.
We just couldn't get out of bed, but like because he felt safe, now he started to feel excited. Because it was sort of the opposite of okay, I was feeling really overwhelmed before, I don't want to study, the not studying is going to make me worse. Now it was like, okay, I'm doing well when I'm studying, I can see results, I'm excited when I study, so now I want to study more.
Very good. And also, like there is like when we discuss about the psychological safety, like you can bring down the challenges, like make the questions very simple that you ask to them, and then they feel psychological safe. Or they should mentally feel they are there, and without reducing the challenges to reach to that psychological safety. That's more important. It's very easy if you want to bring psychological safety, just reduce the. So that is like easy way. That's we do with some students, ask them to reduce the load or something like that. But within a course, we cannot reduce the challenges they are going to face. They have to study these materials. They have to know these materials. We cannot reduce that for them, right? Because they are going to take the step one. The only thing we can do is the other aspect, making maybe reduce the load they are going to take, but not the content within a subject. No. So that is where we try to do increase the psychological safety without reducing the challenges. So explaining to them, okay, these are the challenges. These are the challenges that you're going to face. These are the challenges that you need to face, and then bringing them to the psychological safety is the real, you know, concern that we have. Right?
So it sounds like now I think I understand more of what you mean by like when people fail out of school, when people fail step one, that fundamentally it's an emotion, like an EQ problem, right? It's not that they're not capable of doing it, they're just not doing it, right? They're just not doing the thing, in part because they don't feel safe doing the thing.
Okay.
And so a lot of it is either building up their sense of like, I can do this. And in addition to that, sometimes it might mean like kind of reducing the, obviously not not modifying the course, but maybe reducing the number of courses that they have to deal with so that they don't feel that level of overwhelm.
Overwhelm, yes.
That makes sense.
So because like say for example in MD1 itself they have to take human structure and function course, molecular basis of the medicine which includes biochemistry, genetics, things like that. And then they have to learn like epidemiology related course, ethics course and clinical skills related to that, and the problem based learning comes associated with that. Like it's a lot. Like in the semester one when they come and it's a lot. Even though they complement each other and things like that, we try to reduce the load for the student. Okay, now just study your molecular basis of medicine for now. Okay, and then see how we can work. Once they understand, okay, they are able to do it and they pass the NBME of the biochemistry and then they become so confident to go for the physiology or something like that. They need that initial, like once they then, yes.
I heard you say off camera, you said something like, another challenge that you see students have, and I would imagine that this is related to the feeling of psychological safety, is that there's a big difference between just watching a video and actually studying it, understanding it, retaining it, and using it.
Perfect. Yes.
Can
See,
you
what
elaborate
happens
on that?
here is that like the most of the time the students rewatch the video. It's not useful at all. So we clearly tell them redoing something is not the key. Doing it first time, making notes out of it, using it like a flashcard, keep revising your notes whatever way they want, either using flashcards or like rewriting the informations like again and again. But it's not a good idea to rewatch it. No, because rewatching entirely wasting the whole time. So what happens is that the students tend to waste a lot of time watching and again, rewatching and again. Not looking, okay, if you want to read also, if you're reading a chapter from guided textbook and again you want to reread the guided textbook again, it takes so long. Its chapters are very big, the book are very big. So first time when you read, what you're supposed to do, okay, summarize it. Next time you read the summary, make it into bullet points. Next time when you read, okay, you understood the bullet point, the important bullet points that you keep tending to forget, note it down. Okay, and then keep adding to that bullet points. Maybe when you practice a question or when you finish a quiz or something, okay, you got like a new point that need to be tweaked in. Okay, tweak it in your notes. It's not that okay, after 1 week I go back and read that chapter again. Again, after 2 weeks I forgot. Okay, I go back and read the chapter or I rewatch the video. No, that's not a good strategy for the students because they're going to waste a lot of time. But they should watch it once. They should read the textbook like once. They should understand the whole story. And out of the whole story, they themselves have to make a small summary. That means they understood the thing. Then out of the summary, they have to put the bullet points, what they need to like really keep memorizing it. For each topic, there may be a few simple points that they need to keep. They have a tendency to forget it, So they just need to note it down. Those key points, and then whenever they have like doing some Q banks or something like, maybe an added point to that topic, or maybe a new point to the topic number 2, something like that, they have to just add to there. So this way they don't go back and like waste a lot of time. So that's important for the student.
So it sounds like it's not the what, it's the how. Right, it's like everyone's using, a school is a really good example. Everyone is using the same lectures, but obviously how people are approaching those lectures is very, very different. And so the students that are most successful are the ones that really know how to approach it, right?
Perfect.
They're focusing on that 20% that makes 80% of the difference and not wasting a bunch of time on passive learning. And we had a student actually in the Caribbean. She goes to one of the Caribbean schools. She had failed step 1 4 times. very passive techniques. Like just did not know how to approach the materials. Basically was at the end of the line, right? Like, because technically 4 times is the maximum you can take step 1 or any of the steps. And so she actually, to take it the 5th time, she actually had to get sponsored by a state medical board. All she did, she changed basically in the way that you're suggesting, right? She changed the way that she learned it in the first place, right? She learned how to sort of process the information better. We taught her how to take that processed information, make really good flashcards on it so that she can reinforce it. And then we taught her how to read the questions. She, on her final attempt, she scored a 277 on her practice test, which is like top. I mean, that's higher than I scored. I scored in the top 0.1%, but she scored like 277.
Yes.
The same student that failed 4 times using the same materials, and in less time, right, doing exactly what it is that you're suggesting, basically was able to score in the top 0.01% on at least that practice test. We'll never know what her real score was, but obviously she passed. And so, yeah, it's so powerful when you can show someone how.
Oh, the problem with the students is when they watch a video, they feel that, oh, I understood, and it's there in the brain. No, it's not there. If they understood, yes, that's true. They understood what is happening, that's true. But is it there in the brain? No, it's not there, actually. Next day, gone, it's gone. Even the immediate texting. Unless otherwise you make it into a summary or like it into somewhere. Okay, then is the summary enough? No. After 1 week, that is also gone. So what you have to do? Again, from the summary, you have to make it into bullet. And then keep revising it, like at least like 3 to 4 times. If you don't go over it, just before the exam itself is gone. Leave it, the MD1 topic in MD5 or in step 1 time. Remember, you need to constantly, review it. It has to be there.
Yeah,
Yes.
Makes total sense. So I'm curious to know, you mentioned that one of the challenges of educators at schools is how to deal with students that are looking only for high yield material, right? It's like you've prepared all of this other material, and if it's not in first aid, they're kind of just like, ignoring it. Like, how do you deal with a challenge like that?
Yeah. So, see, when they see, the problem is, we know when they do that, they are not going to score well. Okay, they're not going to score. So they will understand. So when we talk to them, okay, they are good students. They are like very dedicated students. They know how to study. They know how to memorize. They have the memory, everything. But the concept is so small. If it's asked in a twisted way, if they don't know the whole story, it's gone. So it's important for them to start with the whole story, watching like a elaborate video or reading like a textbook, and then come to first aid. Then if they summarize it and then they memorize it, okay, when a point is taken out and asked about it, they can recollect, they can understand the whole story, and it is there in the memory and they can use it. The problem is if they purely memorize that bullet points and then stay with that, if they don't start it with that from the beginning, understanding the whole story, reading the whole chapter, understanding all the connections for that, they cannot. And they cannot use that knowledge. So if they use like bullet points and only study it, maybe from a friend, the friend has read the whole text and made a summary, and from the summary he made a bullet point, and the student number 2 did not take slept nicely, went to the friend, asked for the notes. Okay, he memorized the notes. Okay, he also knows the same notes, and the friend also knows the same notes. Both of them have the same thing. But the one who actually went through the whole content and made the notes and then memorized will be able to use them, rather than the second person who just memorized the notes and came will not be able to use. In which context it has to be used, which connections has to be made for that point is lacking for those students. So that's what happens. If they purely depend on like a review source and only memorize those content. So the problem is when the student comes to the medical school, he listen to all these various study techniques and methods, and they think, oh, first aid is the Bible for this. Okay, let me study only this one. Okay, that's how they get exposed to all places. Okay, this you must study. Yes, of course, but they are not understanding alone. That is not the thing. So they struggle, but they will understand it eventually, slowly when they struggle, and then we have to give that advice. Okay, then they have to depend on the whole content, and then they have to memorize. Of course, what they need to memorize maybe the contents in the person, but understanding that in a whole picture is very important to apply that knowledge.
So it sounds like the way to deal with it is, well, I mean, you're giving them NBME exams, so they'll experience it, right? That you're giving them early experiences to kind of test it out and say like, oh, okay, like when I only memorized the stuff in first aid, like I did awful, right? And so you can kind of demonstrate it so they can see it
Yeah,
early.
they understand that even before going to the step, because even in the internal exams, weekly quizzes, they will come and talk to us. Like we have given a lot of formative exams, so the purpose is make sure that they come to us, to get the feedback. When they struggle, they come for feedback at least. So when they struggle and they come, okay, we ask what happened. What did you study? Yes, they show us like, okay, I studied all the. But even if I ask in front of them, okay, what is the meaning of this? Okay, cyclic AMP increases in this scenario. What does it mean? Okay, they only study cyclic AMP increase in this scenario, but what does that do? Or like, where did this cyclic AMP came from? Or something like that. They don't have an understanding of it. Then if you don't have that, using them becomes very difficult.
Okay, so yeah, so that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I think what you're saying is that yeah, I mean, they get to see it, right? It's like you can talk to them. One of the best parts of, I think, being able to work with someone one-on-one is that you're like in a small group at least, is that you can just ask them a question. So like, okay, so explain cyclic AMP to me. And when they struggle and you can see that kind of look of like terror of like, I have no idea. You're like, okay, great. Like learning moment. Like let's take this and let me show you why this isn't going to work for your step 1, or your shelf exams, or step 2. And then also, also pointing to the students that have been successful, like you were saying, right? Like
And also, while we point out, it's important, like, okay, we should not point out that they're like, as soon as they come in for the feedback. As soon as they come in for, so the first thing is always, in our faculty development, that's what we get to know that, don't start with the cyclic AMP problem. We know that this is habit. How he used that information, what are the questions he could answer successfully, talk about that questions, how he could answer them, what are the strategies he used to answer them, how he was successful in that, and why. Then go to why these questions you couldn't answer, why you struggled in these questions. The first thing is to give him psychological safety, give him the feeling of good feeling, then give him the feedback that you want to actually give. That's the priority. Previously, okay, give feedback. That's the concept. Now the concept is first provide psychological safety, then give the feedback that you want to give to the student, so that they accept the feedback. That's important.
Totally, yeah. It makes sense. Like it's one of those things that it's like common sense isn't common practice.
Yeah.
I would imagine that is. I was talking to Dr. Arja, and he was saying, who's the dean of the entire school, and he was saying that, you guys have a pretty robust process of faculty development, but I think that a lot of schools don't necessarily have that luxury of being able to sort of train. I know that I've talked to deans of some pretty big schools, some pretty like famous names, and that's one of the really big complaints that they have is that faculty development, because there's so many teachers teaching the different courses. It's very, and they're doing their research, they're doing their clinical practice. It can be very, very difficult for them to sort of find the time even.
Yes, at Avalon, how we manage is like we have like specific requirements. Okay, so how much hours we need to teach in a week, how much like hours we need to put for our research activity, how much we should put for our committee activities. Like we may be part of certain committees, and then the committee meetings, and then how much we are supposed to, and how much we are supposed to put it for faculty developmental activities. That is different from the research activities. Research activities may be like medical education related research, or like maybe subject like physiology related like research. So we have like specific targets. On average, we get like 10 hours in a week to teach or to be in a classroom activity for the classroom activities. So that is like not that high, So we are like working 40 hours in a week. So 10 hours. So remaining 30 hours is still there to use it for research, for committee activity, faculty. So it's specified. We know the faculty know, okay, this much I need to do. So faculty development comes as like a mandatory kind of thing, but it's inbuilt. So it happened. So it's important. So what happens in the other Canadian schools, like this balance, they struggle to bring it in for the faculty. they struggle to bring in. Some faculty will be like, instead of like having a 10 hours of teaching, they might, some faculty may be teaching 20 hours. Another faculty may be like teaching like the other time. They don't specify what you are supposed to do with the remaining time. They specify, okay, you can do your research, or you can do your other like committee related works, or like coordination related works, or like talking to the students or something like that, office hours providing. So we have a like set. So 40 hours, what you are supposed to do with that 40 hours in a week, it's set. So we know how much we are dedicating for each component. And if anything seems like little bit imbalance, okay, people, some has to increase the research component of it and then reducing it in the faculty developmental part or something. But then the faculty will be discussing it with the deans and things like that, and then see how they can bring that balance. So it's important for that the students, for the faculty to have that activity. Then only they can productively help the students in getting what we are trying to achieve for the students.
It sounds like there's a lot. I mean, it sounds like there's something is working, right? Like you're seeing your scores increase after the curriculum changes that you sort of shepherded through. It also seems you mentioned off camera that remind me how many students are there in the preclinical versus in the clinical phases?
We have like slightly less in the preclinical versus the clinical phase, because we also get like certain transfer students from other schools and coming in for the clinical phase of that. So we have like around like 100 to 150 in the preclinical, means in the basic sciences, and then clinical around like 150 to 200 students in that.
So that, I mean, that was interesting when you said that, because I always imagined that a Caribbean school, because you know there's going to be attrition, that there would be fewer students in clinical than there are in the preclinical. But it sounds like because of reputation or things like that, like
attrition happens. Attrition happens mostly in the first part. That's true. The overall attrition of the school is around maybe say 15% if you take. It varies year to year. But in that 15%, most of that attrition is actually happening from the first part. Later on, attrition happen. Yes, after passing step 1 or the attrition still can happen, but that is mostly due to financial, family related, or like a health, like some health like accidents or something happens, and then attrition. But educational reason attrition mostly in the in the basic science part, especially in the basic science itself in the beginning part. And also when we talk about, say, the pass rate and mass rate and like all these things, then we talk about, it's all like first time pass rates. Like say we say 80% is the first time pass rate for the USMLE step 1. That means that student is not like attrition, okay? The remaining 20% is not to reach there. It says good to reach to MD5 and then staying there. The first time pass rate is 80%. What happens is that the remaining 20% maybe sit through again, like second time or third time. They pass and then they move on. So attrition rate is not just failing, okay? The failing is different from attrition.
And what's the match rate for students at the school? It seemed pretty high.
Yeah, pretty high, So again, match rate, again we are talking about the first time match rate, yes, it's about 70% to 80% of the students match in the, and then but the students, we advise again, we don't leave the students like that. Even though they are graduated, still they'll be mentored and they'll be asked like, okay, go ahead and do some research. If you want to do elective within the Avalon or like some research elective, make sure you have 2 or 3 publications more, or like do some extra clerkships or extra rotations or like shadowing and things like that. We guide them properly to how to enhance their CV better for the next one. So the process still continues. So yeah, that is a point.
Yeah, I was talking to Dr. Arda, who was like, yeah, I give like mock interviews on like the weekend. I was like, wow, that is
it happens,
That is
because it's a lot of students, and then they are like so much in the stress during just before the the interview process. They already got the call for the interview, and then they are like worried. Then they need someone to talk with. Then they need all this to happen. Okay, and then even if they fail, then we don't leave it at that time. Okay, gone is no. We still continue to keep the students in contact and then make sure that they are following it up thoroughly, and then next match, how to apply better with a better CV and things like that. We guide still guide them. We have like also like along with the Kanja, we have like a dean of postgraduate education. So even though we don't have any post graduation at Avalon, we have a dean for that. That the purpose of the dean, he was like a retired surgeon, so he knows like what is happening in with all the program directors, how these things works and clearly. So what are they looking for exactly? So then the students start, contacting him and then taking appointment with him, sitting one on one with the our dean, and then he guides what are the additional things that they can do to improve the CV for the next time, like that.
What is that? I'm sure there's a lot of people that want to know this. What, like, do you have any numbers around for the people that have failed any of the steps, like step 1 or step 2? What's the match rate for those students?
Yeah, it's everyone knows that it is pretty low, but at Avalon the benefit is that we always like push to its limit, unless otherwise the student gets exhausted, like both like financially struggled or something like that, and then or health related and then back up. No, we make sure that they get all other benefits so that we can push them to that limit. The point over here is like most of the time when we report or something, like say we have two accreditations. One, they ask like when we want to report to them, what is the first time pass rate? What is the first time pass rate for step 2? Like what happens with the other students? Are you leaving them? What are the kind of supports you provide to them? So we don't have like an actual statistical number. What happens to the remaining 20%? Yes, on an average we can say still from them it again they match again, like they progress again from there. It's there. And what are the supports we provide? Yes, we are providing this kind of supports. But again, what happens is that the other attrition that we see, like the one I told you, right? Say about 15% attrition, 10% is from where? The remaining 5% is because of these reasons. The attrition, like health related or something, like they fail and they couldn't continue with their education. They cannot like maintain that one again, like then the attrition happens at that level.
But do people fail and then match? Fail in the
Yes,
USMLEs and then match?
yes.
Like,
Examples are there.
do you have any like a rough idea of numbers? Just off the top of your head, like
Yeah,
ballpark.
maybe after failing, yeah, maybe around 50% or less than that. Once you
Okay.
fail, and then matching is not so easy. That's for sure. That's why we have all the measures taken before they go for the step 1 exam specifically, and to make sure that they pass in the first attempt. So that's why we have these NBMEs and make sure that they score well in the comprehensive NBME, and then we certify for the students for the step 1. But normally those students fail. The reason is the anxiety that happened at that moment of time, or some health related things that happened at that time or something like that, then they fail. But if they immediately recover and then pass and then continue, the chances of them matching is very high. Unless otherwise they create a long gap. For example, they fail and then they go into like some kind of a hiding, and then depressed, or like they don't want to come out of their shell, and then and then they prolong the duration of the, say they get matriculated in say in 2020 and finishes in like 2028 or something. Then yeah, it's very rare to get it. But what happens? Okay, one failure and they recovered within 6 months. Instead of finishing it in 4 years, they finish it in 4.5 years. Yeah, those kind of students match better easily. So this duration is very important. So that's what we immediately start to contact the students and advise the students. Okay, don't sit idle, or don't get take the real help that you need. Immediately recover back and come back and then do it. So what happens
So
if you prolong? Yes, chances are much less again.
so for the students that fail, what do you advise them to do?
So see, we have been like following that student from the beginning. So we know the students, what is happening with that student, what are the possible reasons for the student to fail. So from the history we know, okay, this student failed, say for an example, failed first time NBME, and when they reached for the comprehensive, they failed again first time comprehensive. Okay, then we know, okay, there is a high chance that this first time step 1 also will fail. So we talk to the student. Okay, how did you recover when you first time failed the NBME subject exam? Say they took the first NBME, say biochemistry. They failed the biochemistry, but redo the biochemistry again in the next semester, and then later on, all the other subjects like physiology, anatomy, pathology, they passed well. When again they came to MD5 level and then they took the comprehensive exam, first time again they failed. But the second time they recovered and passed. So whenever they are thrown to a new kind of a thing or a longer kind of a thing or a newer, they struggle in it. They had some kind of struggle. So again, they went to the step one. Even though we advised them, again they failed first time in the NBMA. So first time in the step one. So we know what is the strategy the student is using. What are the reasons for the students to fail in the step one? Also, we study those patterns that is happening with the student and why it is happening, and discuss that openly with the student, what is happening with the student, why, and try to, assure him or her like that, okay, this is the possible reason from your history, or what is being seen from the history, why the student is.
And so they're going to be doing tutoring? Or like, are they going to a course? Are they doing, what are they
Yes.
just studying on their own? What are they doing if they fail?
Not just studying in their own. We have like MD5 tutor, like MD5 facilitator. We have a specific person like a faculty, and that faculty is a pathology faculty who is only guiding for the MD5 students who is going to take the MD5. Sorry, the step one exam.
The students that fail, they're going
Yes.
back to MD5?
Yeah, and then going to back to MD5, and then studying it like in a different way. That's only 4 months. The MD5 is like just 4 months. So once you fail, again for 4 months, again do it. We don't want them to wait for 1 year and do it. No, the chances are much. So we give them 4 months. 4 months is apt, to redo, and then with the help and then support and then understanding. Okay.
Well, Dr. Praveen, it was a fantastic conversation. Thank you so much for sharing all of your insights, all of your experiences. I am sure that there's a lot of people that will benefit a lot from this conversation.
Yeah, hope so. And then hope our Avalon students as well as the other university students, get help from this kind of conversation, and